So Stanley, here's something that concerns me. You have his associations with Acorn. Acorn is, and we're seeing it now. The election fraud that is going on right now from a group that says that they're nonpartisan, a group that says they're just trying to get out the vote, they're not trying to campaign for Barack Obama. Dan, play the audio from the speeches that Acorn recently has given, the convention speech. Can you play these quick pieces?
This has been the worst presidency that this country has ever known. But that's all right, because we're getting rid of his ass. He got to go.
We're getting Obama for president. Obama needs us, Acorn, but we need Obama, don't we?
Okay. All right, so here's the thing. They say one thing and do another, and a lot of these people that he knows and he's associated with will break the law, go around the law, do anything they have to. Bill Ayers doesn't regret taking up arms and blowing up the Pentagon in the 1960s. He is a terrorist, and he doesn't disavow it by any stretch of the imagination. No matter what Barack Obama might believe, the people he has constantly surrounded himself are not necessarily trustworthy people.
Well, that's right, Glenn. And the truth, Glenn, is that Barack Obama was part of all this. As Senator McCain said in the last debate, what Obama and Ayers were doing on these foundations was funneling money to Acorn. Now, at the time Obama was funneling money to Acorn, he knew that he was about to run for office, and Acorn people, although they called themselves individuals instead of Acorn officially, were walking the precincts working for Obama's election. Now, technically it's illegal to give money to an organization that supplies your precinct workers. This is one of those cases where Obama himself was involved. Why did Ayers and Obama give out $150 million to improve education in Chicago, and yet there was no measurable improvement? Because I don't think they were as focused on improving achievement tests as they were in funneling money to these community organizers who would help him politically.
Stanley, answer this. There were Republicans on that board. It's not just Barack Obama. Why isn't this an indictment on everybody that was on that board?
Well, the truth is that the Chicago Annenberg Challenge did have this one Republican fellow, but he was a dissenter. That's what Obama doesn't want to talk about. When Obama and the others came up with a plan to funnel money to the Developing Communities Project, his original radical organizing group, this fellow Arnold Weber, who was the Republican, he dissented. And we also have indications that there was someone whose name is not given, but their description fits Arnold Weber's description, who said that the proposals that came in were awful proposals that were getting funded. So they actually ran roughshod over a dissenter, and it was almost certainly the Republican.
What about these two heads of universities that were on that board with him that supposedly are, hold a picture of Ronald Reagan, close to their heart?
Well, they don't. The one Weber, the businessman, was also at Northwestern University. He was a dissenter, and Eikenberry was head of UIC. He's a liberal. And the rest of the people were super left-leaning foundation people in Chicago. I mean, it's just absurd. I mean,
okay. So Stanley, you're a thinker. You look at this stuff, and you must say this matters. For what reason? This matters to you. You feel compelled to get this information out. You've done a lot of your work on this. Nobody else is in the mainstream media really focused on this. Why personally do you think this matters? What's coming if we don't pay attention to this?
Well, Glenn, Barack Obama is a clever fellow. I think he sees himself. I haven't published this yet, but he had a quotation earlier where he sees himself really like Paul Wellstone, but who's smarter politically than Paul Wellstone. Paul Wellstone was a super left-leaning Democratic senator. He sees himself as the smart guy on the left. he isn't necessarily going to favor every single radical left proposal right away because he wants to retain power. But what many voters believe is that whatever moderation he'll show is coming from his soul. Actually, in his heart of hearts, he wants to go as far left as he can, and he'll go as far left as he thinks the political traffic will bear. He'll do everything he can. He'll only stop short because he's being cautious politically. But if you want to know where his heart is, and he's said over and over himself, his heart is with his community organizing days, with the thoughts and philosophy of community organizers. And as I read into what community organizers believed, and as I saw that Barack Obama and Bill Ayers, who, by the way, Ayers was also a community organizer and thinks of himself that way, they both did everything they could to funnel money to these community organizers. When you see what they believe, you see that it's just like Reverend Wright. And I'm not exaggerating. I had an article called Senator Stealth in the National Review. You have to subscribe to read it. But you read the philosophy of the Gamaliel Foundation, which is the network that Obama first worked for. It's just like Reverend Wright, and I'm not exaggerating.
Who's using whom? You've got the Reverend Wrights, the Nation of Islam, the Black Panthers. You have the George Soroses of the world. They're all supporting Barack Obama. He doesn't necessarily have to have ties or endorsements, going his way back to them. Who's using whom? Who do you think is the winner in that game? Which one has the real power to shut the other side down?
Well, I think Obama is a fellow who has a lot of sympathies with people on the far left, but who sees himself quite accurately as being a lot smarter politically than they are. And he sees himself as someone who's going to deliver for the left, broadly speaking, in the most pragmatic way you can if you're in a country that is center-right. So he's going to be torn if he gets in with a Democratic Congress, because the Democratic Congress is going to be split between the people who want to go for everything they can possibly get in the 2 years that they're certain that they hold power, and the people who fear that that will cause a reaction, something like the Gingrich reaction to Clinton. And Obama will be mediating. He will be torn between both sides, but in his heart will be with the left, and he'll give them as much as he can. I have
just about a minute left here. The new party and the philosophy of the UN-themed peace school, which William Ayers and Barack Obama funded, the peace school, the UN-themed peace school, the philosophy between the two, is there a link?
Well, I haven't seen a direct link, but to talk about the peace school a little more, Ayers has a book where he gives examples of teachers who teach social justice in an appropriate way. And one of his examples is a woman. This is not from Annenberg funding, but it's something Ayers was touting, a woman who wouldn't let her children say the Pledge of Allegiance. She stopped them from saying the Pledge of Allegiance. By the way, most of them were illegal aliens, most of her students, and she wrote for them something called I Pledge Allegiance to the World. And Ayers touted this in his book as an ideal example of teaching for social justice. So then you move over to a school, the Peace School, where all the holidays are focused around the anniversary of the founding of the UN or the anniversary of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. And, now I don't think Obama was particularly closely tied to Louis Farrakhan. I haven't seen a lot of that. But
no, I'm not saying, I'm not saying, but Louis Farrakhan is tying himself to Barack Obama.
Right, but one thing I wanted
I'm not saying it goes the other way around.
I know, but despite what I actually was going to say is that even though he personally is not directly tied, one thing people forget is that when Jeremiah Wright went with Louis Farrakhan to visit Gaddafi in Libya, that was all this same period, and I think it was 95. So Obama knew that his pastor and his mentor, Reverend Wright, was palling around with Louis Farrakhan visiting Muammar Gaddafi. So I think that's not a particularly patriotic idea, if you know what I mean. Okay. So Barack Obama is at least willing to tolerate all of this because of his general sympathies with the left, even if he doesn't accept it 100%.
Stanley Kurtz, Senior Fellow of the Ethics and Public Policy Center and writer for the National Review. Thank you so much, Stanley. We'll talk to you again, sir.
Thanks much, Glenn.
So, Stanley, here's something that concerns me. You have his association